Right, so you know where we are. We're off Main Avenue. And Main Avenue is in the process of going through redevelopment phase. And here are some of the things you've been thinking about for how to enliven and rethink what goes on here in Main Avenue. We've got interesting street furniture that's inspired by local architecture. You got together and with the community and talked about what you want. In fact, his person wants hip, funky, cool, occupied stores, or fully occupied storefronts. You've got in the center, you've got a fountain, and you've got a public stage, and all kinds of fun things that you're thinking about. And I want you to be thinking about the possibilities out here as activated public spaces. Now, here's my mom saying, what's an activated public space, Mara? Anyway, so I'm here to tell you what an activated public space is. But because I work with artists and designers, I'm going to show you what an activated public space is. And those spaces that I'm going to talk about are going to help you understand what they are. So let's start in a place that we're probably pretty familiar with, and that is our nation's capital. And we all know the Washington Monument, right? It's the postcard picture with the Capitol building in the back. And if you look closely here, you've got the flags flying on a windy day. It's glorious. It is this beautiful, inspiring monument. But it's also an activated public space. And my son Larson was there just last weekend, and he took these pictures for me. And he noticed that at the bottom of the Washington Monument, look at all these people who are laying on their backs with their feet up, and they're looking straight up at that monument. They are interacting with this space that I'm sure the designer back in 1848, when he envisioned it, was not imagining that it could ever be used in this way. People have taken this icon and they've used it in this very active way. They are interacting with it and making it an activated public space. So not far down the road, in fact, you can see the Washington Monument in the back. You will go to the Vietnam War Memorial. And this is also a very different kind of space. It's a black V polished granite, and you can see how reflective the surface is, so that when you move across this surface, you start to see the names beginning in 1958 with a few names, and as you move through the space, those names get more and more and more until you get to the vortex, and then you turn left or right to end at 1978, and where the last fallen soldiers are. Well, so this picture was taken by my son Larson, and I asked him when he was there. I did a little bit of research, and I found out that 8 soldiers from Twin Falls lost their lives. And I asked him to locate one of them. And he did. He located David R. Chatterton. You can see his name right here. And you can see how what Larson is doing is he is actually interacting with that space. He's making a rubbing of that name. He is thinking about the life of David R. Chatterton and that he gave up, for our country. And he actually sent this to me. This is what I brought. And I brought it today. Here's the rubbing, a souvenir of that experience, of that activated public space. And here it is right now. So 1 week ago, he's making that rubbing. He's sending it to us. And we can remember this person from Twin Falls who many years ago gave his life up in the Vietnam War. So, yeah. So this is a powerful experience, right? These are, from the Washington Monument being this, sort of glorious monument that we look at and we can interact with, to the more contemplative, more powerful and deeply felt experience of interacting with this polished granite piece. By the way, when he's making this rubbing, he sees himself. He becomes part of that. This is an activated public space. Now I want to take you to another place you might be a little bit less familiar with, and this is a more upbeat exploration of what activated public space is about. Here is Puerto Vallarta, where I was in February with my dad and my stepmom, Kathy. This is Kathy here, doing exactly what you're supposed to do in these 6 sculptures along the Malecon, which is the seawall. She's touching them, and you can see that the end of this, the nose of this sculpture, has been touched by thousands and thousands of people before. It's all burnished and beautiful. On the right, a sculpture that's a little bit less activated, really more straightforward here. We take a picture, then we move on to others. But I want to show you how other sculptures along the Malecon, Puerto Vallarta, are even more interactive, are more created, are more activated public spaces. So this is a whole grouping of sculptures. Each one is a kind of seating. And again, you can see this woman here, she's doing exactly what she's supposed to be doing. She's burnishing with her butt the chair here and reminding us that this is what this space is about. And right here, here's my dad. Thanks, Daddy. He's in the audience today. There he is posing for us, really showing what it's like to interact with these public sculptures. Now, a little further on down the Malecon, we get even more activated public spaces. This is a ladder that actually is inviting. If you look at these kids here, they're actually invited to step up into the first step of this ladder by the sculpture. And they're invited to climb up. And hiding behind here is their father. They were supervised. And in fact, they were supervised to the point where here's Dad saying, no, sit on their shoulders. It's okay. I think Mom was stepping back, holding her breath. But in any case, I want to remind you that really great activated public spaces, really successful ones, are ones that give you a lot of different ways to interact with each other, to interact with the objects or the street furniture or the spaces that are created. So now I'm going to show you, or I'm going to introduce you to a lot of different kinds of activated public spaces that I've experienced in my travels. And let's start in New York City, one of the biggest activated public spaces, one of the most popular places to go when you go to New York City, and that is the High Line. It was an old elevated railway, and they thought, we got to tear this thing down. And then somebody brilliantly said, or probably many somebodies with some deep pockets, said, let's make it into a park. Let's make it into a very contained urban park, and let's enliven the neighborhood that it belongs to. And it really was one of the things that helped the Chelsea neighborhood really come back in a very, very interesting way. And you can see there's public art, there's on the top here, there's viewing rooms that you can look down onto the avenues and watch people go by. The High Line cuts through this hotel right here. It really has integrated into the life of this city. And there's all kinds of concerts and events and food trucks and exciting things going on up there. And it's busy from morning until night, the time that it's open. So a little closer to home in San Francisco, I want to show you how another kind of activated public space, a parklet, it's parking lot size or parking place size. This one probably 2 parking places. This one was a cooperative effort between the Exploratorium, which is our San Francisco Science Museum, and the Boys and Girls Clubs. And what they did is they created this public parklet that is actually a mini science museum where you can go and explore the effects of water. So I have a little close-up over here on this side that shows some of the structures there that are meant to be able to gauge the rainfall or to understand how you can desalinate water. And you can see students from nearby are keeping a monitor of how much rainfall. And believe me, they had nothing to do for many, many years. But last year, it kind of started raining again. So it's now becoming even more active than ever because there's actually something to gauge. So how does an activated public space engage the public? There are a lot of different ways, and I want to show you some of them. One might be a space in a clearing that encourages people to get on, experience, walk through. I'm a Curvy Path, follow me, is what this sculpture says. And I brought students, my grad students and undergrad students to this space for probably about the last 5 years. And there's not one student that doesn't get to that space and immediately have to get on that meandering path and walk it. And they walk it all the way down, and then they turn around and they walk it all the way back, and they do it with a smile on their face. That's another aspect of activated public spaces. They make people happy, and they get them moving, and they get them moving through their environment. And you can do it individually, or you can do it collectively. So here's another activated public space that's a little bit more observing by the public, but certainly being activated, as you can see by the video on the right, by the thing I hate the most in San Francisco, which is the gale force winds that we have ripping through the city. Now, each one of these little polycarbonate almost pixels, in a sense, is set in motion by a little windmill behind it. And the interesting thing about this sculpture is that it captures the wind, and it actually gets these windmills going. And what happens is it actually feeds energy back into that building. The building is a public utilities building, so it's perfectly appropriate for this kind of an artistic intervention, a design intervention. All mechanical, not electronic. And another example, another wall example, on a much more modest scale here, is at the Oakland Museum in a courtyard before you actually go in. They have painted the wall in blackboard paint, and they made all these little hooks for chairs. So at the beginning of the day, you take your chair down, and you set it down, and you enjoy, resting there with a friend. If you're tired, you want to sit down. At the end of the day, they hang everything up, sweep the courtyard, and it's ready and refreshed for the next day. And also, as you can see, a lot of people have decided to leave their mark on that wall, or on the blackboard wall. So activated in multiple ways, through physical means, but also leaving some sort of mark of your presence there and a message to share with others. So another activated public space in Chicago's Millennium Park. It being, again, grand scale. It takes a lot to get these things done. It takes a lot of civic organizations and a lot of people who are willing to foot the bill for these kinds of things. This was in the center of Chicago, Crown Fountain. The artist, I think Jaume Plensa, actually enlisted people from the community to have their photographs taken, or their high definition film and video taken of them, and they made gestures in their faces, and at one point they would close their eyes and purse their lips like that, and that was the point at which the water spouts out of the fountain. So the Chicago residents are the ones who activate this originally, and Chicago residents or visitors to this fountain in the summertime play with this fountain as they wait for it to spurt out all this water, and it can be a really pleasurable and fun place. And if anybody's been to Chicago in the summertime, they have heat, but they also have humidity, and you definitely want to have a fountain close by. So here's an example from Market Street in San Francisco from several years ago. A derelict storefront, not used for anything. Market Street now, of course, is the home of Twitter and Uber and all these really interactive companies. But several years ago, before any of that development happened, they had a lot of empty storefronts. So one of those empty storefronts was set to take your photograph when you stood right in front of it, and it went flash. That's what the flash is right there, taking this photograph. And then if you can see, up 3 stories high, across the street, you turn around and your face is projected until someone else comes and takes their photograph and replaces your face. And only happening at night, enlivening, activating this public street corner where otherwise people might not go. But this, I went there a couple of times, took my son there, and this is actually his French correspondent, who was in 8th grade, and the other kids that came along with him, and they were so excited to be able to leave their mark on San Francisco. Here's another installation along Market Street, and it's a bench that actually is completed by you and a friend, or a stranger, good way to get to know a stranger, by holding hands. You touch one side of the bench, there's a metal piece, and you touch the other side of the bench, and then you hold hands, and music will play. But I have a video that will show us how this works, and actually how these 2 couples here interacted with each other. They never knew each other before, but they had this delightful moment of sharing an experience in this activated public space.
Let's go there.
I heard something. Okay, we got it.
So they were having a little bit of trouble at first. So the first couple said, here's how you do it. And I love that moment where perfect strangers walking down one of the busiest streets in San Francisco had this moment to get to know each other and to share this memorable experience. So it was mentioned that I teach at California College of the Arts, and I teach artists and designers, and I have some fantastic colleagues who are doing some really, really interesting work. Some very digitally based, and some very mechanically based. And I'm going to end my talk with two presentations, or with two specific examples. This one, very, very technologically based, done by two architects, husband and wife, Jason Kelly Johnson and Natalie Gattegno, who together are future cities, enabled with all kinds of people who know how to write the code and know how to build the pieces, the installations. But I'm going to let their video tell you about how Murmur Wall works. So it actually pulls information from the internet that is trending, and it projects on these little pods. But also, you can be there with your telephone, and you can upload your own whispers, whatever those whispers need to be. You know, maybe you need to tell something, tell a secret. You know, maybe you need to say how much you love somebody. You have the opportunity to do this with Murmur Wall. Many different kinds of interaction around this public sculpture that creates an interactive, an activated public space. So a little closer to home, but with one of my colleagues at CCA, David Cole, who in collaboration with Michael Brown created this bicycle trio for Bodo in Boise. And I love this project so much. It's all mechanical, no digital anything, and I'm going to let their video tell you how this bicycle trio works. So it's good for one person, it's good for two people, it's good for three people, it's good for people of all ages. It's activated by turning, then pedaling. A little bit of the mechanisms. Does it turn? Oh. Love that face. How can you not love this? This just makes people happy, right? This is what activated public spaces are all about. They are places for all ages to enjoy themselves and to interact with each other and with the objects or the furniture or the things that we design and create and put in those spaces. And I just want to leave you with this thought. We're on Main Avenue. You're going to walk out into that street, and I want you to start imagining, what would it be like if you had that bicycle trio just out there that you could interact with, no matter what your age, right? Or if you added some of the other pieces that, I was introducing you to here. The possibilities are really endless. Not that you have to do them all at one time. It's good to introduce a few ideas at a time. But that street is out there waiting to become your activated public space. And I really think the first thing you should do is you should get together with CSI and let's see that out there. Let's demonstrate that in our just outside the doors. And when you do, I want you to invite me because I want to see how you have activated your public space. Thank you so much, everyone.